Well, there have been 9 meetings and almost nothing has changed in terms of what is agreed between Team Anna and the government. 9 meetings later, it's only the differences that have increased. Initially, there were 3 and there are 6. Today, there are 10 points of divergence. And with Anna Hazare saying that the intent of the government is insincere and understanding seems unlikely to be forthcoming. But is this rhetoric taking attention totally away from the key issues as far as the Lokpal bill is concerned? Let's go straight into the debate tonight. Vinod Sharma, welcome. Prem Shankar Jha, it's an absolute pleasure to see you again. Kumar Ketkar, Medha Patkar will also be joined by Prashant Bhushan and Mahesh Jetmalani. So in terms of journalistic, political experience and also experience as an activist, we have very good representation tonight. I just want to make one point right at the start, before I go to my first question, is that I'm sure that we have seen so many debates on whether civil society has a right to represent, who are they to represent, can 5 people represent. I think that part of the debate has more or less been handled. Therefore, tonight I have 2 drafts. And Mr. Prem Shankar Jha, may I begin with your permission by asking you that don't you think that in the national interest, not just the issue of who should represent, but also why don't we on the show tonight go through point by point, the 10 points of divergence and see whether there is any merit in the points that Anna Hazare's team is making. I want to start, Mr. Jha, by pointing to you the first point of divergence, which is about the selection committee. Now, we find here that in the selection committee, basically, the government's selection panel has 6 politicians, 2 judges, the president of the National Academy of Sciences and the cabinet secretary. Team Anna's version is 2 politicians, 4 judges, chief election commissioner, comptroller and auditor general, and previous chairpersons of the Lokpal. So in pure merit, Mr. Jha, pure merit, one has completely lopsided 2 politicians. On the other side, you find a very solid representation in what Team Anna is suggesting. So, do you think the government should consider what Team Anna is saying instead of being too rigid?
Yes, I do. The whole point, let's be very straightforward about this. Where is the problem of corruption today? It is in the political layers of government and in the political layers of all political parties. Therefore, I do not want to see any politicians in the selection committee. I would much rather have retired prime ministers, by all means. People who are now out of politics but who have made a name for themselves. That is different, but I'm talking about serving politicians, no.
I think Mr. Jha, you've laid it out very, very straight at the very start. Want to ask you, Kumar Ketkar, you have taken a very firm view that, this is civil society, cannot really decide how this country will go. Let me go to point number 2 with you, Mr. Ketkar. Search committee. The government version on which will be the search committee, which will find out who these Lokpal members should be. Team Anna has spelt out their search committee. Team government is totally silent on the same. Team Anna has written 1.5 pages on how the search committee should be appointed. We don't know who compromises the government search committee. Again, therefore, on point number 2, Kumar Ketkar, Team Anna has done a fine job. The government is being ambiguous on points.
Well, I think government has to be ambiguous. It cannot be categorical the way Anna can be, because Anna is having authority or claiming to be an authority without having any specific responsibility in running the matters of the state. And therefore, he can afford to be very clear, very categorical, very simple and very straight. Whereas government is actually supposed to be running the system. And that very system has been accused of being completely corrupted. Now, the fact of actually existing corruption and the fact of investigating it by a certain agency, and again a search committee to be appointed by a certain agency and not by government and by Anna Hazare alone, I think that smacks of tremendous bias on part of the civil society to dictate terms to the government. I am not saying government is innocent. I am not saying political class is not corrupt. But the point is, this entire campaign looks like totally against politicians, totally against government, as if government has no authority at all. And government does have an authority.
Sure, government has an authority. But the government authority also, I'm sure Vinod Sharma, you'll agree with me, Prashant Bhushan is joining the debate right now. the government authority also, government has also got to try and be as specific as possible on the removal process. Point number 3, Mr. Sharma. Government version and Anna version both are there with us. What is quite clear is that the government's draft says that a person can approach the President of India. How is one expected to go about this? There is no time frame prescribed for action against errant officials. Team Anna's draft, from what I see, Mr. Sharma, on the other hand, spells out the specifics of the procedure, whereas the government's version is rather ambiguous. On point number 3 also, therefore, Team Anna has done a fine job. The government's version is extremely ambiguous. Mr. Sharma, what are we to make of it?
No, Arnab, one thing I would like to let you know that ever since this debate on Lokpal has started, the government work is totally at halt. The bureaucracy is not lifting the pen, they are not signing up anything. And the total procedure, the total machinery has come to a grinding halt. You see, if I know bureaucrats well, unless these guys have some degree of cover by way of, some amnesty towards a decision taken in right earnest, these people will not work. So I think that Team Anna and the government should have found common ground where the bureaucracy was at ease in order to deliver on day-to-day basis. Look, this is the system, they keep the system going. You may say they are corrupt, but I've known bureaucrats, and one is on this panel, Aruna Roy. She's a former bureaucrat. I don't think that she will agree with the idea that all bureaucrats are corrupt.
No, I'm not saying that.
Mr. Kejriwal himself has been a former bureaucrat. Harsh Mandir is a former bureaucrat.
But
so to paint the entire class as corrupt is unfortunate.
No,
but yes, the sanctions required for the prosecutions have been done away with in the government draft. It is, but with the proviso that they will get a chance to be heard by the
but
Lokpal.
I am only...
what is wrong with that? Democracy,
Mr. Sharma,
everybody must be having a chance to be heard before a prima facie case is made out against them.
Yes, but then you see, on specifics, tonight, let's just get into deep specifics on this. Medha Patkar, Prashant Bhushan, welcome. We are going point by point on the 10 points of divergence that you have with the government. I presume you have 10. Medha Patkar, let me go to point number 4, jurisdiction. PM, MP's bureaucracy, higher judiciary. Now, I find here the government has left out the PM completely from the ambit of the bill, completely strange, because the initial government draft included the PM with certain clauses. Government has done a complete U-turn. What happens to talks of including the Prime Minister after he demits office, Medha Patkar? Even that has not been mentioned here. I'm only on the point of PM. What do you make of that?
I think it's very logical and rational to have everyone who is a citizen of India to be included under the ambit, because all citizens are equal before law. Otherwise, it will be an irrational, unjustifiable, unacceptable discrimination. And as you rightly said, that the previous draft of the government itself had the Prime Minister at least in it. And why not now? That they are presenting more diluted versions, and that is why the dissensus on this point. And this is a major point, because do you consider yourself as equal to the other people, the common people, your own electorate, or not, is the question that the Prime Minister himself should be answering suo motu, without people coming down to his house and questioning him. And the judiciary, the corruption that is dug out by the people like Prashant Bhushan ji, there is no accountability of the judiciary is what is
Judiciary is totally
out.
out.
In spite of impeachment, in spite of impeachment, there has been no results that would be worth highlighting. So this law is supposed to be bringing that in, and I think even the President should be included. Why not?
See, Medha Patkar, the reason we are having this specific debate, I started with Prem Shankar on a specific point tonight, is because if you look at the television debates, and I personally, we will also plead guilty to that, is that you have seen a lot of, high voltage rhetoric. Yesterday we told the BJP and the Congress that they effectively together, both sides were unhappy. Today when I go on specifics, we have both drafts with us. So, Prem Shankar Jha, before I come back to you, Mahesh Jethmalani, welcome. Prashant Bhushan, judiciary, your pet subject, totally out and excluded out of this bill. No judge of the Supreme Court or any High Court can come under the purview of the Jan Lokpal.
See, I think it's totally irrational. The argument that is being given is that we'll bring the judiciary in under another kind of body which will be brought in by a judicial accountability bill. See, there are two aspects of judicial accountability involved here. One is investigation for corruption. Today, investigation of a judge for corruption is with the normal police machinery, which is under the government. What the Supreme Court said in Veeraswamy's case was that because the police is under the government and the government can harass the judiciary through this police, therefore you need prior sanction of the Chief Justice of India. Now we have found that involves a serious conflict of interest, and we have been saying that there needs to be an independent machinery to investigate and to prosecute judges.
Exactly.
So the Lokpal is intended to be precisely such an independent body, and once you have an independent body which is independent of the government investigating judges, where 7 members of the bench of Lokpal will grant permission to investigate or permission to prosecute a judge, why does any honest judge have anything to fear from this system? In fact, the present system is much worse. And the people are saying, no, allow the present system to continue, or bring in a judicial.
This part actually,
judicial accountability.
This whole part, Mr. Bhushan, and I am completely standing in the center of this. Mahesh Jetpalani, please come into this debate. You know, this particular part is the weakest link, because you keep saying this is a parallel government. Kumar Ketkar says we cannot afford a parallel government. There are parliamentary norms. But what you have done here is that you have created a separate class of people. The Prime Minister, any other member of the Council of Ministers, any judge of the Supreme Court, any judge of the High Court, any member of Parliament. This is a completely different class of Indians. You can't touch them. The Lokpal can't touch them. Mr. Jetpalani.
Well, I don't
but your
know
party also, your party also believes in this.
Well, you know, Arnav, the party has not. The party has formed a committee to go point-wise by the two rival, the rival contentions. But look, I don't know if you're going to be cynical. There's nothing I can do about it. But I'm willing to stick my neck out and say that as far as I'm concerned, I can't speak for the party because I don't have that authority. I can speak for myself. I think that all these offices should be brought within the ambit of the Lokpal. The Prime Minister, the judiciary. With the judiciary, I make one caveat, because Mr. Chidambaram said that there were weighty objections from 2 retired Supreme Court Chief Justices, Justice Venkatachalaya and Justice J.S. Verma. I would like, before I take a final view on the judiciary, I would like to hear what weighs with them as to why the judiciary should be excluded.
I
see no reason why.
I can tell you that.
I want to ask you, before you answer there, Prashant Bhushan, why have you climbed down? Your team has also climbed down, because I see when I'm reading your bill, it does not mention investigating charges against members of parliament inside parliament. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You were initially pushing to allow a Lokpal to investigate acts of corruption by MPs inside parliament. This is a climb down, isn't it?
No, it's not a climb down. In our bill, it's very much there. I don't know, you may not have read the right clause, but it's clearly there. We are saying that an act, you see, the government was saying that Article 105 says that no MP can be held to account for his vote or for his speech within Parliament.
Yes.
We are saying that taking a bribe for a vote or a speech is a different act, and you are not exempt. It is not your privilege to take a bribe. It is your privilege to vote or speak in Parliament, but the act of taking a bribe is an offence under the Prevention of Corruption Act that is not covered by this parliamentary privilege. And to that extent, the Supreme Court's judgment in the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha case is wrong and needs to be overruled. And I'm sure it will be overruled
therefore
as soon as the next MP is prosecuted.
My question, therefore, is, I'm not even halfway through, Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha and then Mr. Ketkar, would you agree that as far as the points of divergence are concerned, Team Anna has a superior position vis-a-vis that of the government? They've thought it out well.
Do you want me to talk first, Arnab?
Yes, sir.
What would you like? Arnab, this is not a question of superior or inferior position. I am deeply disturbed by what I'm hearing just now. First and foremost, let me just point out that a compromise is not a climb down.